Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Still City Insider podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jeremy Ritz, alongside publisher of Still City Insider, Jim Wexel. And today we have with us on the show Roy Countryman and Matt Steele. Gentlemen, welcome. Can't wait to talk the combine with you.
Thanks for having me.
Glad
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad that. Always a great time to have you guys on. And let's jump right into it. Roy, combine just finished up. We got free agency starting next week on the 12th. What positions were the Steelers most focused on during the workouts that you watched? And were there any unexpected positions where the team showed interest that surprised you?
I mean, it's obvious to me. It's defensive line. It's the trench work. We had a few guys opt out that we didn't get a chance to see. Like Kenneth Grant, but Jim can speak to it from the interview portions of it. You could see his boisterousness, but there was a guy from Nebraska that I've really been high on, and he had an absolutely astounding combine here, and that's Ty Robinson. Ran a 4.8 340 at 6'5", 288. Really explosive player, two gapper, can also split some gaps there. Really powerful hands. More of that second, third round guy. So if we're looking at maybe going a different way early on, maybe you could get him in a value at that five technique and add to this defensive front. So that's a guy that really showed out for me. Even Joshua Farmer, the Florida State kid, he had a nice week. Really put on a show in the drills portion. Really looked fluid for a big man. So there's a couple names, at least outside of the first round. We all know the Kenneth Grants and the Walter Nolans that everybody's been talking about, but maybe some guys you want to keep an eye on as we go throughout the draft process here.
All right, so we got Ty Robinson, Joshua Farmer, D-line, and then Matt, coming over to you, same question. What did you see based on your observation?
I mean, if we're going to go over to the offense, and I think I would agree with Roy first. I think it's going to be defensive line probably early in round one. But you know, I listen to the interviews, and the field stuff is fine. And what I like, Alik Ayamaner, I kind of fell in love with during this process, possibly in round two. I think he fits what we want in a wide receiver in terms of culture, in terms of effort, in terms of blocking, in terms of not taking a play off, in terms of toughness, former hockey player, selflessness, gives credit to his teammates, but, his quarterback, offensive lineman, he seems to get it. And when I was kind of researching these players at the same time I'm watching them, that was a guy I got excited about potentially in round two.
Okay.
What's his name?
Alik Ayamaner. 6'2", 206, ran 4.44. He's a 10.6 track kid in high school, but Canadian kid. Played hockey, didn't start playing football till he was, I think, in junior high. And fell in love with football, stayed with that. Stanford kid. And you watch him block, and it's like his life depends on blocking, and there's no plays off with this guy. So 50-50 balls, made some crucial catches and late in games in the clutch. And, that's kind of a guy. I got a handful of guys I like in round two. That's one I'm probably most excited about at this point in round two. I think we can agree on Kenny Grant, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan in round one. We're kind of looking at them. If they're gone, Ashton Genty is like a wild card. Because, hey, I think there's going to be a run-first team. I think it needs to be. I think it needs to be a line of scrimmage team. I think if you're going to compete with Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, and the way to beat them is to kick some ass along the line of scrimmage, and they can't get the ball off. We saw that in the Super Bowl. So we're probably not going to get a quarterback like that. So I think it's going to be line first, trenches first.
Yeah, and even I'll piggyback off you there, Matt. Just
Yeah.
even as far as receiver wise, a guy that I was impressed with was Xavier Restrepo. I know he's a little smaller than what you think. I think he's like 5'9" and some change. But the man, when he was built, when he's running down the gauntlet, catching passes quite easy, strong hands. But the lower half, he is well put together. And he just has that Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of build from the waist down, the run after the catch ability. And you turn on the tape when he's at Miami there's a reason why Cam Ward continually looked for him, even though he had guys that were a lot linear and more rangy targets. He was the go-to guy when it was time to either in the red zone or to move the chains. And Xavier Restrepo maybe in that third round, if we're looking for a guy to really help build this offense out and move the chains. If we're gonna have George Pickens back on the outside, we need somebody to be that valuable under intermediate target.
Right. So, I hear about Ikbuka, and he's a great kid. And I wanted to ask you this too, Roy, because, when you have Austin, and then we haven't even seen Robin Wilson yet in terms of a slot receiver. And I know you want a guy that can move inside and outside, but does that potentially, block Wilson from, because you don't want to like give up on a third round pick already. So do we want a field stretching number two, or do we want somebody? Because Iron is going to play the slot too. And you want that bigger body that can block inside. So they're all really going to play inside, outside. But what's your take on that in terms of what the Steelers already have in those types of guys?
I will say, I think people that pigeonhole Roman Wilson to a slot receiver need to go back and watch him at Michigan. I know he ran about 65% of his snaps from the slot, but with that 4.3 speed that he has, he is able to win outside. That route running ability wins both outside and in. Same way with Calvin. It's just for me, I want somebody with the savviness. That's what we're missing right now in this receiving core. We have George, it's the linear outside target, and then you have the speed of Calvin Austin, even Roman Wilson. We need that guy that is the reliable. I can look to you. You can uncover late. Kind of read the coverages and zone and find the soft spots. We don't have a guy like that right now in our offense outside of the Freiermuth at the tight end, but we need another receiver in that aspect to kind of be a varying style to what we already have. And I love Calvin Austin, the way he built off of this past year. I think there's more steps to him coming in the future. I can't wait to see Roman Wilson actually take the field. Hopefully he's diving into that playbook and he's ready for year two. And but I think a guy that's that more savvy can get open and be that uncoverable target late on third downs. That's what we're kind of missing in the flair of what we have in this offense as far as receiving core.
So, Roy, do you draft that guy in the first round? Or, I mean, Matthew Golden's stock has risen. I assume he had a great workout. You guys watched the workouts. I didn't. Tell me about Golden. Is he that savvy guy, or is it Buka, or you guys talking second, third round again? Is it another crop of Roman Wilsons out there?
To me, Matthew Golden has kind of his stock has risen into the late first round. I'm more in the second round, early second. He's going to go. He ran a 4.29. He measured quite well at 5'11", 191. Had nice sized hands at 9.5 inches. So I mean, he hit all the thresholds you're looking for. And when you watch his tape, he can get that separation early. He can run a variety of routes all across formation. But to me, I'm not investing a first round pick in that. And the only guy that I would see that would be worthy of a first round pick would be Tedero McMillan if he'd fall. And Emeka Ibuka is just a guy that I don't think does enough different in our offense to valid a first round pick. We can get a guy in the second, third round at a better value and address the trenches or even cornerback if we don't address it in free agency here in the first round, rather than going out and getting a guy like that with maybe a lower floor when we can get a higher ceiling type player in the first round with better measurables at a different position of higher value on roster building wise.
All right. Now, speaking of workouts at wide receiver, what about the Iowa State wide receiver?
Yeah, so
Apparently put together a incredible workout.
yeah, Jaden Higgins. And if you watch his tape, that shows up. He ran a 4.47, jumped 39 inches at 6'4", 214, 33 and an eighth inch arms. I mean, that's a big target. And
Are we talking about the same guy? Isn't there
Yep.
somebody that ran in 4.2, 4.3 or
that's
something?
that's his teammate
Wow.
Jalen Knoll. That's more of a
Yeah.
slot type. Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
So you like the other guy?
I like both of them. Jaden's probably gonna go more in that second round because he's that, wide catch radius guy. In the third, late second, early third is the Jalen Knoll round. He's the guy that we're talking about, uncovering late, knows how to gain separation, knows how to work back to the quarterback. he's a guy really in that late second, third round that you get a little bit of extra explosiveness after the ball too. And he's at the catch point. He's not afraid to go up and combat with two defenders. I've seen it multiple times on tape.
So you guys watch the workouts, and we don't have a first rounder that's exciting either one of you guys
No, but
at any position.
like Roy said, I have Higgins is one of my 5, 6 guys that I kind of like in
But
round
we're
two.
talking about second and third rounders.
Yep.
Receiver, yeah.
Well, tell me somebody you're excited about for a first round pick.
Grant, Harmon, Nolan, either Kenny Grant, Derek Harmon, possibly
Well,
Walter
Grant didn't
Nolan.
work out.
Yeah, no, for the workouts, no, yeah, like Harmon.
Yeah.
I mean, what about that safety from that big safety? Where's he
South
from?
Carolina.
Clemson, South
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah,
South
South Nick Emanwari, Nawari. I can always mess up his name. He jumped 43 inches, ran a 4.38 at 6'3", 220. That's a big rangy safety that also can drop down the box. So if we're talking about those three safety looks that they've been wanting to run, he'd be a guy that maybe we take that chance on the
Maybe,
physical
or
attributes.
do we, Matt?
I don't think he'll be there at the end of round two, and you're not going to take a safety in round one. That's why I mean,
Right. I'm
yeah,
talking about round one. He's
You're talking
a
about
first
round one?
rounder now, right?
Yeah, he's a first rounder at that.
Yeah, safeties have a short shelf life, though. I worry about that. That's one of those positions that kind of like running back has slipped in terms of value, especially in the first round. They used to draft Keanu Neal in round one, and then now, you don't see the big bodied safeties really getting drafted that early. As well as he runs and as well as he jumps, those guys that tend to be a little bit bigger, 6'3", 6'4", still going to have issues and change the direction on the field. Roy, I don't know what you saw there from a coverage standpoint with him.
He actually wasn't that bad as far as fluidity wise and with his
Yeah.
hips. Whenever he's transitioning, they used him mostly back at free safety. They would drop him down more in the box whenever they played a healthier tight end that got targets. So he was that tight end eliminator. He's used to playing that role in sub packages.
Yep.
I'm with you, Jim. That'd be kind of a wild card for a first round pick with that athleticism, especially because the future at safety, if we're not going to retain Minka after this year, Deshaun Elliott's only got this year left on a deal, I believe. So there's not a lot left in the cupboard behind that. That would be a huge athletic prowess, guy you can maybe start building on the fly on the back end.
Well, the only reason I bring him up and pressing you guys on athletes is, did they take someone special? I mean, they don't even have a quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
are they one player away? No. They got to start taking special players regardless of position. And is that safety special? Doesn't sound like it from you guys. He's a wild card, maybe. Doesn't really fit. Doesn't sound like it.
I think Jahdae Barron can play, 5'11", 194, running 4.39. That was surprising. I know you made the Brian Branch comparison. He's got a little bit more speed, but he can play inside and outside.
He
Not that I
fits
think-
perfect. He fits
Yeah.
perfect for them. They
Right.
need an inside guy right now.
Right. He could play inside, and then,
And he could play inside right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he has the ability to play safety if need be and outside corner. That's the thing. Now, that 4.3 speed, you didn't really see it on tape. It was, about 4.5. So him running that time now, is he going to be able to play up to that? That's where I always worry with those kind of guys. I'm still going back to the defensive line, Jim. I thought Derek Harmon had a really nice performance. I know Matt mentioned him here. If you go back and look at the measurables, he's not that far off of where Cam Hayward was when we drafted him in the first round. He has quickness and power. There from Michigan State. And then he went on to Oregon even after that this past year. He was at Michigan State prior. So he has experience both in a 4.3 and 3.4, lots of different techniques, lots of experience across the formation.
55 quarterback pressures last year.
Exactly.
I don't know who's out there keeping stats. Maybe it's one of his buddies, but
Yeah.
55 quarterback pressures for a tackle.
That heavy hands is what I always love about defensive linemen, and he definitely got it. And that's a guy that if I could get him at 21, I'd be happy to walk away with that guy, knowing I have a future anchor on my defensive line.
All
As
right. All right. Would you take him over Mason Graham?
Or Grant, yeah. Oh,
ooh,
Mason Graham, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Mason Graham looked terrible. I saw him walk past. I couldn't believe this was the great Mason
I couldn't
Graham.
believe they said he's weighed
I didn't even watch
296.
tape of him because he was supposedly unattainable.
he
Now I think he's going to slip right past him.
Nah, he's you put on the tape, he's a different animal.
Yeah,
That
All
guy
right.
is he
he's got
he
that
can shed
wrestling
blocks
background.
with ease. He looks like he plays with olive oil on him.
He's a
He's a
stud.
heavy-handed player. Like he's one of them guys where he's a junkyard dog when he puts a helmet on. And he can thrash some offensive linemen there in the Big Ten, as he was able to wreak havoc and get in there. But when you see him without a helmet, you're like, boy, this guy, I don't know. I think I might be able to
They
stay a
listed
couple
him at
rounds with him.
318. Yeah. I don't know why he got down to 296. They listed him at 318.
And then he didn't run. That's the thing. You drop your weight for the combine, so you run, but you don't lift, or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yep.
And then your pro day, you gain your weight back and you lift.
I
Yep.
think they're trying to showcase that pro day. I don't know any Michigan kids that worked out, unfortunately.
But that brings up a good question, Jim, and I have for you is we mentioned Ashton Genty here. You were saying we're not one player away. If he would somehow fall to 21, what's your opinion? If do you think we would take a running back again in the first round? Because I think he's very dynamic at the way he's able to just completely escape tackles at this point. Top end speeds there. He's an underrated pass catcher. That to me, if he's able to fall to 21, I have a hard time passing that guy up.
I would love it. But are they going to? I mean, they're still trying to re-sign Najee.
I know that's.
If
Are
they
we gonna have?
re-sign Najee, they're not going to draft somebody to start ahead of Najee. You
Yeah,
don't want to, don't want to get him all upset.
yeah,
That's the guy that when you draw that extra defender in the box, you could still make a miss and take it to the house. He's a
Yeah, well,
unique.
the thing about Gente is you've got to cover him as a receiver too, so you don't crawl up too close in the box like you do with Najee. He's
yeah,
no receiving threat at all.
yeah.
So that's why he faces so many stacked boxes.
I don't understand the fit with Najee if they're going to go with Fields anyway. So I don't know if it's really going to.
I
You
will
got
say,
to
I like, here's another, let me just change gears here for a sec.
yeah.
I saw Lance Zierlein had Will Johnson fall into the Steelers at pick 21.
home run pick. Great technique, can play both zone and man. I know he had some injury issues this past year, but that guy has a PhD as far as technique coming out of the Big Ten. Um, Coming in as a rookie, he'd be able to start pretty soon. And he's not only, somebody that's able to hang in the hip pocket of receivers, but is also able to take the ball away. He had quite the game-changing turnovers while there in Ann Arbor. So, and as far as I seen on tape, he wasn't afraid to get a little dirty in run defense, which when you're a Steelers cornerback, you definitely have to be able to come down.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Will Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been banged up. He was banged up this year a little bit. And so last year he played through some things and he played extremely well through some things. Can he hold up? But yeah, I mean, he's a high-end recruit, top 12 recruit, 5-star kid who lived up to it. And then his third year, he didn't get on the field much. But I mean, the comparisons there to Denver's a corner oftentimes are certain, so he's a hell of a talent. But I think like cornerback, I don't think that's how they're building it, man. I think it's going to be defensive line if they can make that happen. Roy, I wanted to ask you this because last year they had the double dip in offensive line. If let's say Derek Harmon's the pick, and there's been rumors of like Tyleek Williams at the end of round 1, but because he's not a great pass rusher, Jeremiah doesn't have him in his top 50. He might be there at the end of round 2. What do you think of Tyleek Williams?
Tyleek Williams is a second round pick all day long, in my opinion. And I'm not really worried about his pass rush skills because
Right.
that guy is a high caliber run defender. If you've seen him running the hoop drill during the combine,
Yeah,
he
he looked
has some
great.
underrated athleticism that
Yes.
wasn't tapped into. He just simply was not asked to do it a lot at Ohio State. He
Yep.
was asked to two gap and let them linebackers run free like Cody Simon.
Yep.
So I think that would be an astounding fit if we go a different direction in the first round. Even if not, if we go Harmon first round, I want Jordan Phillips from Maryland in that second to third round range. Wrestling background, um, is an all-world heavyweight lifter. I mean, I think he power squats. I think it was 795 pounds. The guy is an absolute animal, and he plays up to it. Has some, coil in his get off, and some heavy hands to shock centers and guards. When you watch that tape in Maryland, he's able to two gap and get some, disbursement there at the line of scrimmage. So I think we're going to focus at maybe getting a guy that's a pure nose tackle, more that two gapper, to kind of let these linebackers roam a little more freely.
Yep.
Even if that's not in the first round, I think in the mid to late rounds we'll see him in that double dip. It'll be one of these nose tackles.
I think it's crucial. I think what you saw with the Eagles do with Jordan Davis and their ability to just rush four, but then not keep an extra defender in the box to be able to play cover four, which then has your safeties active in the run game. You just need two-man corners to be able to do that as well. So I think you get that big body in the middle. You got two-man corners on the outside. I expect them to probably address that in free agency in some form or fashion. Now that defense is right there, so
Yeah, and another area that one of the guys that I really enjoyed watching, work out this past weekend was West Virginia tackle that's probably gonna go to guard, Wyatt Millum. I think that's an underrated need that we could see in that third, fourth round range. Maybe we target a guard going forward. I know McCormick and Kahn talked highly of him here in his presser there at the combine, but Isaac Samalu's on his last year of his deal. What are we going to do at left guard, maybe going forward? We have Broderick now being flipped to left. Is it, we have some uncertainty there in the future.
well, that's why I think they should target Mekhi Becton in the free agency, because if Jones is not really working, like you get these rumors that he didn't put in the time that he needed to put in, you got a guy there that potentially could play and kind of push him maybe at tackle, but was a great run blocking guard. You know what you get based on what he did with the Eagles, and I think McCormick playing 57 games at left guard in college should just be groomed behind Ciamalo, and then he can step in. But they need that big body dude that, when you're going up against Travis Jones and the 340-pound dudes, you want a bigger guard as a piece of the equation who's athletic, who can run man, gap scheme, and could run zone scheme. And I think Becton could do that. He had a heck of a year run blocking, at least for the Eagles this year.
Okay, what's next, Jeremy?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, this is great stuff. This is very technical. I'm sure the listeners are going to appreciate this, but we bring this all together and we look at the combine, we look at what the draft needs were when the season ended and as things have progressed. As of right now, if you were saying, all right, round one, two, three, this is what the Steelers are doing, what's that approach going to be? And let's just go around the table.
Okay, I could start it. I think it's going to be defensive line and it's going to be wide receiver in round two. Even if they get, let's say, Christian Kirk, I think they're going to want to address it with somebody young, sign one, draft one. And whether it's a corner, it could be offensive line. Hard to say in round three. It could be another running back, depending on what they do there. But, the first two rounds, I feel like D-line, wide receiver.
Okay. Roy, let's go to you, and then we'll go finish up with Jim.
I think at this point, I'd have to agree with Matt, at least in the first round. I think defensive line is going to be that sweet spot where we already talked about a guy like Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon. There's going to be multiple guys available that would pique our interest at pick 21 there. The only caveat I would say is if one of them blue chippers fall, that we get the David DeCastro special, where it's just that guy wasn't supposed to be there, whether it's a Gentee or somebody of that ilk. That would be my only outlier. As far as second round, I don't think Najee's coming back. I think we're going to take a running back in the second round, a guy like Quishon Judkins from Ohio State. I'd really love to see his fit in this offense with Jalen Warren. I think he'd be an ideal fit, and then receiver at the third round pick here.
All right, Jim.
Well, of course, it depends on what they get in free agency, and so that could open up cornerback. I don't think they're going to get a defensive lineman in free agency. So that opens up cornerback in free agency. And if they don't get that, I could see a Will Johnson falling. I could see him going with a Barron because yeah, I don't know. Do you look at Beanie and do you say, are you excited? Do you say we should keep developing him? I don't know. Uh, and then in the second round, I mean, we haven't even talked about quarterback. I think they've got to get a quarterback to compete with Skylar Thompson for the starting job. So, um, I like Tyler Shuck. He ran a 4.6. Um, and this is a good topic. And Matt, I think I should ask you, what quarterback fits their scheme?
I like Shuck too. After watching the
For their
combine,
scheme?
doing some
For the
five,
scheme?
at 6'5", I think he could do both with his. He could play a little bit in the gun, maybe run a little read option, but I wouldn't want to put him there too often and get broken in half. But I think it
Well,
is
they're not a read option scheme. I mean,
no. So under center play action, he can see over the line of scrimmage, and I think that potential, if you can develop him, is there. It's kind of hard when all these kids, but he's done some under center in his game. But a lot of these kids are not doing that, so they're not prepared for it on an NFL level. But I think, you've been talking about him, and that kind of opened my eyes to him. I'm thinking he does make sense, possibly, in the mid rounds. But I think right now, I think you go with Fields on a 2-year deal, hopefully, and then maybe somebody around 4 or 5 that you take if he's still there. And
Roy, who do you think fits the scheme?
As far as I'm concerned, I told you this before, Jim. I don't like this quarterback class, but Will Howard would be my guy, and it would be in the
yeah,
early day three. Big physical guy, can do some running, can throw the ball down the field, has great leadership qualities. Um, Tyler Shuck, I'm intrigued by. I love Jeff Brom in Louisville. I think
yeah.
he's one of the most underrated quarterback coaches and developers in the country. So Shuck is he's ready to go year one here, which he should be because he's going to be a 26-year-old rookie, which will be giving me pause outside of maybe the third round, maybe taking him. But unless I'm getting Cam Ward, I don't want none of these quarterbacks this year outside of Will Howard to be a
What if
end of the roster development guy.
what if Shadur Sanders falls?
No,
No,
Keep
thank
on
you.
falling.
No,
no,
thank you. I don't want the sideshow act that goes along with it.
no.
I will give it to him. Watching his tape, that offensive line was horrendous, and he got pummeled for the
Tough.
last 2 years there in
Yeah,
Boulder. So he made his plays, but I don't want all the other sideshow act to go along with it of being Dion's kid.
I agree. I wouldn't consider the position until round 4, if other
Well, then
than
what's the point?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. To me, you're better off investing in another guy in the trenches or a cornerback. You have Skylar Thompson as that third developmental quarterback,
He's got
or
first and second too.
well, in my opinion, we're gonna re-sign one of our two, and I'm hoping it's Fields.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to target a nice veteran quarterback as a backup, somebody that has experience being just the backup, that it's not going to be pushing Fields or Wilson. And then I'm buying tickets into 2026 because I really think next year is when Pittsburgh's going to be targeting their next franchise signal caller. That next year's crop of players possibly has Arch Manning in, and the opportunity to announce your next franchise quarterback in Pittsburgh holding that jersey. I think that would be a story to write itself there.
Has Archie Manning even played yet?
Yeah, he played this past year when Quinn Ewers was out, and he looked quite impressive for a freshman
Yeah.
quarterback. So
I like this quarterback crop. I like these backups. I like a second or third rounder. I think they're going to have to hit it. They're going to have to develop a backup at least anyway.
yeah,
Roy, what's your opinion, real quick, on Caleb Johnson? I like Judkins and Johnson too, in the kind of in that second round range. I mean, he fits that outside zone schemes. He's got sharp, quick feet in terms of, like, he doesn't want any wasted motion. He knows how to set up his blocks and get north and south. And what's your opinion on him?
He does have that little rocker step that Le'Veon Bell had, where he steps for a half pace behind the line of scrimmage amongst all these running backs. He's the one that allows his blocks to develop a little more. Um, I, to me, I like Caleb Johnson as that end of the second round guy. I think he would fit ideally in that outside zone that we want to run with Arthur Smith. Tackle breaking ability, um, big body, can withstand the pounding. And I think he's an underrated pass catcher. Out of Iowa, he didn't really get used a lot this past year, but when he was given the opportunity, he's able to contribute. So underrated player. I think a lot of people sleep on him, and compared to some of these other players like Travion Henderson and like you said, Judkins, and even Genty and O'Marion Hampton, he's going to be a starting caliber player for a number of years here, at least in a committee. He's going to get the majority share.
Great stuff, gentlemen. This is a lot. I'm sure the listeners are going to learn a lot about the prospects this year in the draft. Again, free agency starting next week. Anything that we want to add before we close out this episode? No. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything very well. Matt, Roy, thanks for joining the show. We'll be back here maybe next week. We'll let you know. And thanks so much for being a viewer of the Steel City Insider podcast. Gentlemen, have a phenomenal week.
Thanks, guys.
You too. Thank you, fellas.
See ya.